Hey folks, thanks for watching Ability Main's Storytime. Today is February 11th, 2025. It's our first Storytime of 2025, which will be our first year of doing these. We started them during the beginning of COVID, and we've continued them ever since. I like the oral tradition. And if you think back, there's a lot of oral traditions that survived the AIDS crisis, and I think it's much more accessible for people with disabilities to hear something, put in the background, have a little bit of someone else to listen to. In the dark days of COVID, when we were all living in our houses and not being out much. And still going on that way, and it's weird because it's 5 years later and we have flu, AB, COVID still out there, rhinovirus, norovirus, bird flu. I mean, it's kind of scary, all this stuff going on. I got sick myself with flu. I haven't been sick in several years, and luckily it wasn't COVID. But, my God, it was, and I'm somebody who takes extreme precautions. So this is the first story time of 2025. It's been a ridiculous year already. It's been, President Trump has definitely been up to a lot. We'll try and cover as much as we can, certainly as accurate as we can. Not all seems to change on a daily basis, but we're doing the best we can. We have some, before we go to the Trump news, we got to talk about Leonard Peltier. Leonard Peltier is a Native American activist. He's been jailed for over 50 years. For a crime he basically couldn't have committed. He's been a consulate for over 50 years. Incident of Gala is a really big film that Robert Redford did. You can look him up on Wikipedia. He got commuted by President Biden in the last hours of his presidency. Which is awesome. It's probably one of the biggest things for progressive activists have been seeking for years. Moving out of Jamal still is in prison, unfortunately. But take the wins when you can right now, because it's been a rough year. That being said, there is something to look forward to. On August 9th, Pine Tree Camp is going to have their 80th reunion. It's going to be all two events. The all-day event's going to be free, and it's going to be on August 9th, all day at Pine Tree Camp. I believe there's going to be a ticketed event at night, but there's nothing else there for information beyond that. And I'm getting some information directly from Pine Tree side, Pine Tree Camp Facebook page, so. And that just came out the last couple of days. Additionally, before this goes into effect, the Stop the Shock activism around the Judge Rottenberg Center has resulted in legislation that will be taking effect in October of this year. It's already passed the Senate and the House and been signed, but it won't take effect until October this year. I'm not sure why. It could be something to do with a suspending bill or a fiscal year. I don't know, but as far as everything's been done, and from what I've heard, this shock treatment will not be available to anyone, new or existing, different things. But we're doing the best we can to get. That's what we know as of right now. Anything could change under the Trump administration. Believe me, it probably will. But with the Trump administration, there's been so much new stuff and so much of a barrage of information being shoved at people that it could really mess with your psyche just trying to take in all this information. In fact, sometimes it's so much information that my doctor said try to limit as much media as I can, but there's only so much you can limit, especially in this environment. To give some sort of context for someone, on the first day of Trump's inaugural, he signed a bunch of executive orders that were to export illegal migrants, use ICE, and create huge border immigration sweeps. This happened in Lewiston. It happened in other parts of this. I don't know if this happened in Lewiston. I shouldn't say that. I know that there were some people being held in Portland, but they're not being held in Portland now. They were released. I don't know when. I don't want to talk about ICE raids because that's not something unless they're confirmed, and I'm not in that community. I'm not of that community. I'm really not an immigration activist other than being against ICE. So I'm not a good person to talk to you about this. But basically, Trump waged war against anyone he doesn't like he did in the first term. He's done away with transgender, all transgender federal recognition is gone as of day one. Except I believe all of those are being fought in the courts. The executive orders that he's signing are widely considered to be stepping on Congress and stepping on the judicial branch. But even still, this is all really severely scary and dangerous. At one point, he canceled all future new grants to cities and states. And people at the state didn't know if food stamps was going to be coming out that month. Luckily today I did get my food. I can report food stamps benefits in Maine. Did go out today. I've used them, so that's good. It's February, that's good. But right now we can see the writing on the walls that Susan Collins has come out and said she supports RFK Jr.'s nomination for FDA. That's a dangerous thing if you know anything about RFK Jr. He has very skeptical beliefs on vaccines and autism and marijuana, and has a history of severe addiction and recovery, and it's just his politics are all over the place. I don't think he's someone I would recommend for dog catcher, let alone chair of the FDA. And it's sad because his family has done so much to help people with disabilities, even though they've done things within their own family wasn't great. Definitely not the Kennedys are not a completely dysfunctional family. They're very dysfunctional, but Shriver definitely did so much with the Special Olympics, and just Shriver the Kennedy Foundation, and all the things that it embodies has just done so much. And thankfully, in case you don't know, the Kennedys have been very outspoken against RFK Jr., but then again, Susan Collins has said that she will vote for him, and I'm not sure that's going to be enough for him to pass through a Senate confirmation vote. I know that Mitch McConnell has some real strong objections, and literally RFK and his lawyers through his nonprofit tried to get the polio vaccine stopped a few years ago. So it's all just so ridiculous. It's happening so fast, and the media is happening so fast that it's almost impossible to keep up to speed with all this. And trying to keep up to speed with this can cause anxiety. Believe me, even talking about this can cause anxiety. By all means, if you need to take a break, go ahead. We don't get these, and we're trying to keep it as level-headed and lighthearted as possible, and try and get some of this through because it needs to get said. But Trump also passed an executive order that's going to try and do away with all diversity, equality, and inclusion efforts in the federal workplace. That has a direct impact on people with disabilities. That means Section 504, the American, which predates the ADA, which gives people accessibility into federal buildings, would be affected. President Trump wants to get rid of the Department of Education. The Department of Education is the largest single enforcer of the special education laws, and it actually rates special education law because laws aren't singular, they change and mold. Special education law that started 50 years ago is much different than the special education law that we have now. We've got so many other things that almost seem like sideshows, like this guy Elon Musk, who's the richest man in the world, that is basically coming in and doing what he can to offend the system that the Treasury does to get Social Security numbers and stuff, and doing this with just basically Trump's blessing, which is weird because you would never imagine this stuff could ever happen, and it's happening, and you're wondering how to continue, or how long it's going to continue before somebody pushes back. And it's not just RFK Jr. Pete Hegseth, who was the Defense Secretary, who's now the current Defense Secretary, has had a long history of alcohol abuse. Page's personally was, we won't go into that. He has a long history of alcohol abuse, and he was confirmed. If he was in the military, he would not be able to serve his company, but because he's been appointed, I guess it's okay. So again, this is just literally like beyond words in terms of what is going on. Um, um, People are being told that what DEI means is that you didn't earn it. No, DEI is having bathrooms that are accessible for people with wheelchairs, so they go to the bathroom when they go out in the community. DEI means having an interpreter for when, an emergency happens and people need to know when there's death. Which happened in our hometown when there was, a mass shooting. DEI means that people with disabilities can get on public transit and travel. We couldn't do that forever. We couldn't do that 30 years ago. It's good that we can do that now. DEI, it just blows my mind that we're going so far down the opposite direction after making gain after gain after gain for decades. We're slipping back, and I don't know if it's just COVID. I don't know what it is. It's scary that Trump also pardoned every single person that was convicted for the crimes of January 6th in 2021. So that's just dangerous, and that means 50 people in Maine got pardons. One of the most violent people that were running for the state senate on a pro-Trump platform. And when Susan Collins said that she had issues with Trump, Donald Trump Jr. bought property from Austin, Ontario. Family, Austin, Ontario, ran against Jerry Goldman as representative in the last term and lost by about a couple thousand votes or less. It was a really thin margin, but Jerry Goldman did win. And he sold Don Trump Jr. some property, so if Don Trump Jr. wants to primary Susan Collins in 2026, this might happen, which is kind of weird. Maybe Susan's concerned, I'm not so sure. But to be honest, there's nothing that's good about this Trump administration. Tulsi Gabbard, who was flagged by TSA because of her travels, as seen as being a possible intelligence issue, is going to be head of the CIA. She met with Bashar al-Assad, the head of Syria, that has since been deposed. We haven't even had a story time since this fall of Syria, although it's actually pretty good. I guess the rebel leaders, now the de facto leader of Syria, was a peaceful transfer so far, from what I read, so it seems like it's going good. Cross fingers. I don't know much about Middle East, so maybe I should talk about that. But Tulsi Gabbard will probably be going on as the head of the CIA. And Department of Education, this got to be, first of all, I don't know how, and I'm sorry, beyond the Department of Education, there was something in the New York Times that they were trying to make Medicaid. The problem with that is Medicaid is so responsible for so many parts of nursing and medical care in our society. Medicaid needed by children with Chip and Katie Beckett, and in certain states you can't even receive psychiatric help as a child without being on Katie Beckett or a Katie Beckett waiver. Also, group homes, assisted living homes, nursing homes, all rely on federal money. I know that if just in terms of this is again Medicaid, that everything from people's medical supplies to the way they have personal attendants, to the way they get to their appointments, to the way they pay to see their doctors and nurses, and other, if they have an ostomy nurse, if they have a nurse that comes in to do PT, OT, veterans, those are all under various Medicaid things, or Medicare, Medicaid. It's all a weird hodgepodge of agencies that all have stuff to do together. And not only that, it's a huge part of the economy, in the fact that it pays for so many CNAs, so many PCAs, so many people who work with developmentally disabled adults and children. If you circle back to that, the Department of Education maybe receives about $250 million a year. That goes into our economy by helping educators, paying for, people who have special ed masters in special ed, people who can do assessments, people who can do speech therapies, people who can be paraprofessionals with students, people who can ride those buses with students so they can get to and from schools. Sometimes paying for special buses to get students with disabilities to their special schools because they're in a wheelchair. I've seen students that never went anywhere other than schools because their parents didn't have an accessible van. That was very common back in the 80s. And it's still coming. I mean, it's more coming than it should be. And all of that money, some $250 million that Department of Education that's what, a large part of that is special ed. Now, there is some really good news in Maine. Someone actually emailed the state of Maine. The state of Maine has 100% commitment to inclusion and supporting all educators and everything that goes on. But it's going to be really hard without the money coming in. And again, this is just conjecture because nothing's been done yet. And it's been threatened, but the president has threatened a lot. He's threatening tariffs and steel tariffs that would go into effect, that could cripple basically American and Canadian economies. And it's hard. It's difficult to try and talk about this stuff and not just throw your hands up and be like, it's not worth it anymore. And it is, because, from a historical perspective, this is what we did in the 90s with the AIDS crisis. This is what we had to do to get through COVID. this is what we need to get through the Trump era, creating information through a live stream on Facebook, then so be it. You know, this is what's important. I mean, it's not, if it's not fighting back, it's fighting with, it's at least giving information so you can make decisions and choices and stuff. And, you know, it's just sometimes, yes, this is completely overwhelming beyond any possibility of being overwhelmed. I mean, there's just some things I can't even discuss because it just brings me to tears. Trump wants to get rid of the penny. He says it costs too much to mint. I mean, this is the type of stuff that he is laying as major policy announcements. And from a journalist perspective, he's get a new press secretary who is very young, very inexperienced, who likes to make fun of people. And they've also got rid of most of 5 of the legacy networks, including the Times, and replaced them with Breitbart and other right-wing things. So you're not going to get really solid questioning or answers, but these wild conspiracies that Trump has been going off on for the last, since he's been in power and, you know, taking the oath. He's been saying, you know, crazy things like owning Greenland and taking the Panama Canal. Thankfully, I think he walked away from the Panama Canal thing. But I mean, we've been on chatting, there's something about the General Service Administration being worried about how many people are going to be cut and whether they're going to be under surveillance 24 hours a day. That's nothing to say about Social Security reform that could happen. And there could be some really good, if Trump met with some really good disability leaders, he could really do some great reforms that would help people. Maybe even become independent stuff and, you know, have some background, but, you know, I don't have any base in that. We've seen this all before. You know, there's a really good meme, I hate to say it, but, you know, if you have friends, what was it? If you don't know why your disabled friends are afraid, do you have disabled friends? You have friends who happen to be, you know people who happen to be disabled. And it's true. I mean, I've never been so scared as a disabled person as I am right now. Except maybe in the late 80s and maybe during the Bush administration, but that just like seems like an oasis compared to now. I mean, when you call somebody when you call a state worker and they can't, when they're telling you we don't know any more than you do and this doesn't make any sense to us either, that's totally uncharted waters. I mean, those people have, you know, they usually get stuff from the beds and notes to the beds long before stuff gets rolled out. That's not happening now. That's dangerous. And it's not, I mean, when I talk about all those things that people need, like, you know, disabled people getting master's degrees and so they can work with disabled in special ed. You know, a lot of those programs, at least, it's not special ed, but disability studies program. Mine was one of the first 7 in the country. Are dubbed by university affiliated programs in excellence. Centers on Excellence in Developmental Disabilities. In Maine, that's the Center for Community Inclusion, ARNA. And I actually used to run the first website. And my friend Brian actually ran it after I did, which is kind of cool. Anyway, it's been such. So yes, those were possible monies that could be cut, or grants that could be cut. And those are providing essential services. I mean, literally research into autism, research into how to be inclusive and practical and functional and functionally a good, what functioning inclusion looks like in a good classroom. Some of that stuff actually happened in Maine for the best parts of it, and Learns was like a big program back in the 90s that CCI did. And, just having a website that had all their information so people could go, and they had some of the smartest people on autism in the state at the university affiliated program. And it was a great place to get education, both on a undergrad and graduate level. And a great place to learn. I mean, great place to work. Great place to, find your niche, sort of. I mean, I actually started my own disability website because and then asked CCI, it's like, hey, I'm doing this already, why not? We should be doing a website and, go myself a job. And it says that the stuff that's going to be gone if the DOE goes, if the Department of Ed goes. And again, millions of dollars, millions of people, millions of hours, millions of education, millions of, things that are just absolutely necessary for a working society to continue are wrapped up in the DOE. And it's special ed, but it's also, ESL. It's, hot lunches. Well, hot lunches are probably USDA, but still hot lunches. Although in Maine we all have free hot lunches in our public schools, which is great. It's a wonderful thing because it does away with the stigma and people get to eat. And it's kind of sad that we have to worry about kids not eating, but it's great that we have at least hot lunches and there's also additional food that goes home with some children, which is awesome. And that would have been great when I was growing up, because definitely would have used it. With the FDA cuts, no one knows if with RFK Jr. becomes head of FDA, no one knows what's going to happen in terms of anything from obese kids to prepared foods to vaccines that RFK's views are so toxic. I'm not going to go into them. He's very much against marijuana, even though he never really when he went through his own issues. I believe they were alcohol related, but don't quote me on that. I could be wrong. Probably not, but yeah, don't want to be quoted on it. And there's so much more I could talk about from so many standpoints, but I'm gonna wait, and I'll be back Friday. It's close to 3 o'clock. I've done everything I can right now. I'm exhausted, and I'm glad I got the first story time this year done, and there'll hopefully be one Friday. And keep your chin up. I think having these will be great. I'd like to have more, maybe get involved with a network of people who do them, or do different ones, or do different topics. If there's anyone that does queer story times, or drag queen story times, or feminist story times, or other story times that I could cross promote, I would love to. Again, hope that you have a great week, and I'll hopefully see you on Friday. Be well.